engage with the Nigerian hunters and tell them the plans that he had for Nigeria, whether economic-wise, whether youth engagement, food production, whether in terms of exchange rates, whether fuel subsidy. He did not come and engage with them one-on-one to sell his plan, to even, first of all, to show that he appreciated where the Nigerian economy was presently at that time, and how he will carry out a phased strategy in lifting the average Nigerian from a multidimensional poverty to at least to a average lifestyle. He never did. So from the word go, he never showed clear understanding of what he would face if elected president. And of course, the way the fuel subsidy was removed. Even if fuel subsidy was going to be removed, it was not going to be on his address and say fuel subsidy is gone. He didn't show preparedness. He ought to have, first of all, having become president, set up a task force or a task team to look at it and to at least to lay down strategies on how to remove the fuel subsidy in such a way and manner that will cushion the pains of Nigerians to the barest minimum and will not affect other ancillary aspects of the Nigerian economy, such as food prices, such as transportation, such as cost of housing, and other aspects, such as medical facilities, medical services. So he also, that's what he would have done before. Then they will now make these recommendations, which he will now follow through in removing the fuel subsidy. So it shows unpreparedness. It shows clear unpreparedness. And that's why when there's no preparedness, what do? You act in a state of emergency. You act urgently, you act quickly, you act without, you just, like you said, knee-jerk approach. You just respond to the problem in a reactive manner instead of being proactive. That's the essence of planning. They said good preparation prevents poor performance, but bad preparation will attract bad results and outcomes. And that's these principles and philosophy have been time tested and they are true. So you cannot roll it away. Just like now, what is the long-term and sustainable solution in ensuring low food prices? Even without thinking, we know them. Number one, security. Ensure that the farmers, plateau, middle belt, food belt of the nation have access to their farms and they can farm effectively. Sufficiently make fertilizer and other subsidy and grants available to farmers. The higher, simple economics, the higher production, the lower the price. Simple. What has he done now? How much grants has he made available to farmers, both in the north, the south, and the rest, so that with that they will increase food yield, which will result in reduced food prices. What has been done? At least if I want to declare emergency in food production, we will be expecting that he must make at least 3 to 5 trillion naira annually available to farmers to crash food prices. So because it will not enhance, increase food production. And again too, of course, that will not lead to increased employment opportunities. And of course, value will be added to the production, and of course, it will lead to increased establishment of industries. You see the chain reaction, see the spiral reaction leads to this and that. But when you're not encouraging importation. Just yesterday, before you invited me, I heard that we are now importing yam from West African countries. I don't know how true it is, but I found it impossible to believe. So what we are now doing now, we are now exporting jobs to African countries, exporting jobs, because before it used to be toothpick. We are importing toothpick, we are importing these juice and the rest, but now we are now importing yam, which we can our farmers can produce in abundance in the middle belt there,
exactly,
in abundance, if we are ready to do the right thing. If we are ready to do the right thing. So this one shows unpreparedness. If you want to get the result, you must do the work. So I call on the federal government to be on their desk and fold their sleeve and do the hard work. All this short-term game will not take Nigeria anywhere. And it will serve as a very, very, very unhealthy legacy for the Tinubu administration. So the things to do to enhance food production is there. It's not rocket science. It's indeed simplistic. So do it and get the proper results. All these short-term solutions, quick fixes, is what has consistently and continually and perpetually brought Nigeria to its knees. And so it must cease. It needs to cease. Let's do the right thing so that.
Very true, Barrister. Let's do the right thing so, of course, we can get the value deliverable that is needed within that. And a couple of days back, the Daily Trust newspaper reported that 69 days after the launch of 2,000 tractors in Abuja by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, those tractors are yet to get to the farmers. So you can see how serious-minded or lack of it we are in Nigeria. These are tractors that have been bought with hard-earned money. Rather than get it to the farmers, it is still there with the federal government. Well, let's just see how this goes, though, and we hope that things would get better. Just to let you know, folks, that Barrister will still be here to take us on our main conversation. That is when we return. Bandits abduct 40 worshippers in Zamfara as peace deal collapses. This is still Enterprise Morning. Please don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
My people, the elections are around the corner. Before you know it, it will be 2027. But before then, for you to partake in the election, you must have your voter's card. And for you to have your voter's card, you must register. INEC has rolled out the drums. We call this program Continuous Voters Registration. And it is for you to register. This is to do that if you want to vote. And it's important that you take part in the process of voting. Just go there, give them your name and your address. That's all. And of course, they will capture you, take your picture, and that's all. You are done. Within 5 minutes, you are done. And after that, when the time comes, they call it claims and objection time. That's when you look at it. They will paste all the results or the names of those that have registered all over the places. You will go to the place you register, check your name that is well spelled, and the information you've given them correct. And that's all. After some time again, they will tell you that your voter's card is ready you go and pick it. That is all. Be a good Nigerian citizen, partake in the process, because it's a duty imposed on you by Section 23 of the 1999 Constitution as a good citizen. And you will be better off by voting because you have your mind that, yes, you voted right. I'm Wale Ogunade, constitutional lawyer, human rights activist, and President, Voters Awareness Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for joining us. This is still Enterprise Morning, reaching you from Enterprise Television. Let's head straight to our main conversation for today. Armed bandits attacked a mosque in Gidan Turbe village, Tsafe local government area of Zamfara State, abducting about 40 worshippers during early morning prayers on Monday. Hours earlier, another group of kidnapped at least 12 people in Godai village in Bukkuyum local government area of the same state. Community sources said the victims were taken into nearby forests, raising fears that recent peace agreements between Katsina and Zamfara communities and bandits have collapsed. Observers, of course, noted that the absence of a central command among armed group makes such peace deals fragile as attacks persist across Zamfara, Sokoto, Kebbi, and Kaduna states. Meanwhile, troops of the Operation Fasan Yamma conducted several operations across the northwest, repelling attacks in Katsina and Kebbi while recovering weapons and equipment. Security forces also confirmed ongoing efforts to rescue the Zamfara abductees, though casualties were recorded, including the death of a Nigerian security and civil defense corps cooperative, and injuries to both soldiers and civilians alike. Despite these interventions, the abduction highlights the worsening insecurity in the region and the limitations of the dialogue in halting bandit violence. I still have with me Barrister, His Greatness. Thank you so very much, Barrister, for being here. I truly do appreciate you.
Thank you very much for having me again.
Thank you. All right, so Barrister, let's talk about kidnapping, banditry, and so many other criminal things happening in Nigeria. Of course, Zamfara is what it is, but let's have a blanket issue around the country, because what you see in Zamfara and other northeastern part of Nigeria equally is present in the south, in the southeast, and even some parts of the southwest of Nigeria. Barrister, do you think it makes any sense really for the government that is there to ensure that peace is obtainable in different society is desiring to dialogue with bandits? Does it make any sense?
Well, yeah, it's a hydra-headed threat. So usually a threat that is hydra-headed, you must have multiple options in dealing with it. Of course, dialogue, stick and carrot approach. You must ensure it. Of course, it cannot not only be arms, but our real concern is that, are we sure that we are investing enough in our law enforcement agents to be able to checkmate this criminal gang that has virtually invaded the entire nation and are holding the entire nation hostage? They are holding the entire nation hostage, and it is such a shameful situation that in 10 years now running up from Muhammadu Buhari's administration to now Tinubu regime, no meaningful milestone has been attained in checking what I will refer to as the savage and barbaric targeting of Nigerians by bandits, herdsmen, Boko Haram, ISWA, and their allies. no significant, even though from the Buhari, one of the main reasons why Nigeria voted for Buhari's regime is that because since he's a retired army general, he will be able to effectively checkmate the rising spread of insecurity in the north. Then it has not spread down. But unfortunately, even in the revered Muhammadu Buhari's regime, these security threats now developed hydra-headed dynamics. They now moved from Boko Haram to killer herdsmen to banditry. And even under 2 years after Buhari, under Tinubu, the threat continues unabated. So we will ask the army, from the reports they have been providing, they say they don't have sufficient sophisticated equipment to deal with this scourge. No sufficient drone, no sufficient intelligence, no sufficient manpower, no sufficient motivation for the troops on ground. At certain times, I think a senator was saying the other day that an average soldier get 100,000 a month. I don't know how true that is, but if it is true, that is grossly scandalous to us as a nation. So what is the motivation for them to risk their life to defend our internal security and to defend lives and property within the Nigerian state? So these are the different issues. Then again, too, of course, we cannot completely rule out bad governance from all this, because it is always the root cause. Bad governance always leads to poverty, always leads to deprivation, always leads to injustice, which will now serve as a breeding ground for potential criminal elements. So we must deal with that as well. So at the heart of the well-being of a secured nation is the issue of good governance, proper, appropriate allocation of scarce and available resources, so that it will be effective and it will be effectual for the good of all. Then again, too, I think that from what we have seen now, it shows that criminals do not have any tribe, criminals do not have any religion. You know, in those days, I will call it, they used to say that those who, bandits will not enter a mosque or do, or we can see now that just on Monday, which is yesterday, they entered a mosque. And before, the coloration is that these bandits, they were Muslims. They were of Islam faith, but they entered the mosque, meaning that these bandits, they do not have a tribe and they do not have any religion. They are savages, they are barbarians, they do not believe in any logic, anything that is principled or decent. So knowing this, I expect the government and the security forces to deal with them as such, ruthlessly, to get down to it. These are not people who you can really reason with. So even in the dialogue, we must know that it will only produce results for those who will wish to repent. But majority have their minds crossed that this is the path they will take forever. And that's why they have complete disdain for religion and as well as places of worship. And so I'm saying it again that this should ginger the government to provide whatever logistics and incentives is required for our security operatives to get the job done. But I must say this, dealing with this is not something that is impossible. If the right, the political will is available and the right measures are applied, it will surely be a thing of the past. Because ultimately, good prevails over evil.
Very well, Barrister. Good reveals over evil. But lots of those in charge have said they might use kinetic and non-kinetic measures to ensure that that problem is solved. But there's this popular quote, I do not know if it's substantiated, by General Sani Abacha late, who said that if terrorism or insurgency continues over 24 hours, then the government of the day knows something about it. Barrister, you would remember a couple of years back, especially during late Buhari's tenure in office, the UAE published about 200 names of Nigerian terrorist sponsors. Till today, it's close to 10 years now. Nigerians do not know who these people are. Nothing has been done against them. So is it okay or fair to say that the Nigerian government, according to General Sani Abacha, knows so much about the things happening? And if that is the case, to what gains is it really?
Well, I think that the way terrorist activities had evolutionized over the years, it has grown beyond late Sani Abacha's quotes that government knows something about it. Because from what we have seen, so at times these bandits are even ahead of government in their planning, in their operations, and in their strategies. They are ahead of them. So I will not subscribe to that. I will not really subscribe to that. But what I believe is that I think that we must make up our minds on fighting war against terror, because that is exactly what it is. And if we make up our mind that we want to fight and win this war of terror, no effort should be spared. No effort should be spared in ensuring that whatever is required to defeat this enemy is made available to the security operatives. You remember that even Jonathan had to go out of the way to raise a 1 billion fund for military equipment, and it was that equipment that he bought that appears to have lasted throughout his remaining tenure and throughout even Muhammadu Buhari's tenure, because there was no, I don't think there was any report that Muhammadu Buhari bought some military equipment.
Well, except the Tucano jets, except the Tucano jets that he got.
Of course, except the Tucano jet. But when we talk about AK-47 and other long-range weapons, medium military equipment, it appears that that $1 billion a lot provided quite, even though it was subjected to probe not long thereafter, but it's clear that it provided quite a lot of military equipment that aided the fight against what I will now describe as terror. And so extraordinary, and this is where we want to see political will. This is the kind of places where we want to see declaration of state of emergency. And that's why we are saying, people of my school of thought are saying that the declaration of state of emergency in Rivers State was misplaced. It was completely misplaced. You declare state of emergency in a place where there's no fighting, diverting attention. That the state of emergency ought to have been declared against bandits and banditry, and against killer herdsmen and Boko Haram, and provide sufficient military equipment, recruit. For now, we hear that even our military personnel are understaffed greatly. Yeah. We need to do major recruitment into our military formations to buffer this war against terror. So that's what we want to see. But unfortunately, during Buhari's term, why they are suggesting that we need to recruit between 150 and over 350,000 military personnel. And I really wonder whether during the 8 years of Buhari's administration, more than 10 to 20,000 military personnel were recruited, but I stand to be corrected. And I also really wonder whether in the last 2 years of the Tinubu's administration, up to 10 or 20,000 new military personnel has been recruited into the Nigerian military. So if you have all the equipment cannot operate themselves. You need men, human beings, to operate this equipment. So if you don't have the right number of staffs, the right numbers manning military equipment in the various formations, you find out that you will, as they say, you go nowhere. So we need to, I know that we have adopted security policies, security strategies, but our problem in Nigeria has always been implementation, including the Constitution. We don't implement Constitution, we don't implement our laws, we don't implement our reports, we don't implement our strategies. So and that's where political will, which I spoke of earlier, comes in. But if we are ready to say, okay, we are ready, starting from the president, there's a resolve that we are ready to give this war whatever it takes. Even making that proclamation and following up with practical steps alone, I can assure you that in the next 1 year, if the campaigns do not distract this priority, the next 1 year, the issue of banditry will be a thing of the past. So even though I disagree with Abacha, that not necessarily is because the government, key officials of government are complicit in banditry and the rest of them, but I disagree. But what I'm saying is that key officials of government must be willing and desirous and ready to give it all it takes, to provide all it takes, and to make available all it takes, and to take every extraordinary measure to defeat this gang of terror. So if they now stamp their feet on the ground and do that, I can assure you 1 year, 1.5 years from now, you will find out that these gangs, different gangs of terror, would have been greatly decimated. I have that complete conviction.
But Barrister, do you agree with or subscribe to state police as a solution? Because there's been this cry by governors that if they allow them operate their own police, that the community knows where some of these people are and might flush them out. So do you believe state police as an antidote to solving the menace of banditry, insurgency, terrorism in Nigeria?
The truth about the whole thing is that it is controversial, but like you said, what is really my own opinion about it? Because they have been talking about the abuse of state police, and the fact that when a child starts to walk, it will abuse, the child will abuse his rights, his ability and capacity to walk around, to go to places it ought not to
doesn't want to
go.
Yeah.
Does it now mean that we will now ensure that the child
never walks?
Does not grow enough to walk? Let's will not cripple the child, because we feel that if we allow the child to mature into being able to walk, where it's not supposed to go. The child may go to the toilet. The child may go if there's a well in the compound. The child may go to the well. If there's a stream, the child may go to the stream. The child may go to the swimming pool. The child may go into a gutter. So because of that one, we'll not cripple the child. So don't walk, so that we can only take you where we feel is good for you. So go. That is how those who are arguing against state police, that is how it sounds in my ear. State police is a inevitable necessity that must happen. And where we will see the demerits in it as we apply it. But if we are a country who is actually moving to higher heights, we will have to look for ways to deal with those problems being used by governor against political evidence, being used to abuse fundamental human rights, being used for oppressive function, being used for criminality, being used to commit murder, being used to do personal, carry out personal interest of governors or people in authority. And the question to ask is that this one single police that we have now, federal police, are they not doing all that? Are they not doing that? Are they not doing that? And of course, the answer is known to both you and I. So we must have state police. Not only state police, we must also have local government police, so that there are different levels of law enforcement. And we have to work on it, but I know it's not going to happen in a day, so that they can collaborate, because it's not sufficient enough to have different levels of law enforcement. But what is more important is that there must be synergy among these various levers of law enforcement. They must collaborate. I don't know whether you followed the report from 9/11 in America, United States. Yeah. One of the downfall of security agents, and that's why they now created the Office of the Home Security. Yes. Home Affairs Security. Home Security Affairs. Yeah.
Home Security Affairs.
Yes. Home Security Affairs. Thereabout is that these security agents, they did not. You have FBI, you have DEA, and you have the state police and the local government police. They did not collaborate effectively. They were acting on their own. They were acting on their own based on chain command. They were not sharing information as they ought to. So even after what will ensure that the state police does, because in Nigeria we believe in duplication of function. 7 agencies doing the same thing under different names. So what will make the difference? Because the benefit of security is to ensure that lives and properties are well protected, is effective collaboration within these various security agencies at federal, state, and local government levels. And it means that there should be no discrimination. Their functions must be clearly spelled out. You must now streamline their functions in such a way that the duties of the federal police and their limits, their boundaries, will be stated. The duties of the state police, their boundaries, clear-cut boundaries, are also stated, as well as the local government police, so that if they do know, there will be no crisscrossing, one jump doing, and because that's what we see in Nigeria doing. At times you hardly recognize, you see the difference between police and DSS. DSS now does police work. Police will be doing DSS work. Police is doing EFCC work. Police is doing immigration work. Police is even doing road safety work. Police. So we must properly streamline it, and we must also put in clear-cut regulation frameworks and then supervision to ensure that they stay in their lane, they stay in their respective lane, and they collaborate. Not only stay in their respective lane, but they collaborate. And so that in a situation where a federal police first apprehends a suspect or is the first that was called to action in a place, after carrying out some preliminary investigation, he can now hand over the matter or the suspects or his own report, thus far investigation report, to the appropriate authority to continue. That's how it's done. You refer matters when you see that, oh, this one outside my boundary, you refer it and send it there. That's why it's done in America and other civilized parts of the world. So the state police is not only creating state police, there are other follow-up measures that must be stringently and religiously followed through. Or if it is not done, my guess is as good as your own guess, that the end result is that the essence of setting the state police will become completely futile. That's the truth. So I support state police, but I also support that every other necessary measure that will ensure it to work must also be followed through.
Thank you so very much, Barrister. We truly do appreciate you. What we need in Nigeria is peace, most importantly. That is what I think would attract foreign direct investments in any way. And